Hello and welcome to our blending modes section. In this lesson, we're going to do blending modes 101. We're going to learn the basics about blending modes, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail about some of the different blending modes in upcoming lessons. So I do find that the blending modes in Photoshop are very, very creative, and therefore I sometimes like to refer to them as creative modes. Now you can create some very unique artwork with these tools, and in their simplest form, they're going to allow you to blend layers together to create interesting effects. So once you have a layer selected, as long as it's not locked, you're going to be able to select your blend modes from up here in your layers panel, which is right here. And I do have a color blending mode already applied to this particular layer. Now there are a total of 27 different blending modes. That's a lot of options. And it can get very overwhelming when you look at all of these and you wonder, what am I going to do with all of these? How do these blending modes work and how can I use them? Well, they're actually divided up into 6 different categories to help us better understand and use them based on the category that they're in. So let's take a look at this real quick. So the first category is right here, normal and dissolve. The next category are the darken blending modes. So all these right here, darken, multiply, color burn, linear burn, darker color, these are all going to apply some type of darkening type effect. Then just below that, we have another category that's just the opposite. It's going to do a lightening type of effect. Then we have another category for contrast, another category for inversion, and then we have component. So before we go into each group in more detail and talk about these different blending mode options, I first want to explain and show you what's actually going on when you apply your blend modes, and this will give you a better idea of how they actually work. So basically, when you take a base color, which is represented by this layer right here, and apply a blending mode, in this case we're doing color, then the layer below it, or the blend color, which is this one right here of our image, you end up with a new result. Now we're not seeing the results of this yet because this particular shape with the blending mode is actually above it. But first, let me show you this formula real quick. Base color plus blend color equals new result. So let me show you what this actually means, and you can see it better visually. So what I need to do is place this base color over this layer. So I'm just going to grab it and then drag it down, and as I do, you can see a new result is occurring because the two layers are starting to blend together. How cool is that? I love it. All right, let's dig into this just a little deeper for a better understanding. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on this layer group here. All right, so this layer group includes 3 colored circles, and we're going to work with these 3 colored circles with some different blending modes to get a better understanding of how the blending modes will affect our layers. So we have our red, our green, and our blue. Let's go ahead and work with our red layer first, and what we're going to do is apply the multiply blending mode, and watch what happens to that red layer when I apply this blend mode to it. Alright, so it completely disappeared, and that's because the multiply blending mode is in the darken category. But if we zoom in, we can actually see remnants of the green circle right here, and we can see the edge along the inner side of where the red circle used to be. But instead of being completely green like it is over here on this side, it's much darker because of the blending mode that we applied to the red circle. So we have a black background, so the first thing it's going to do is cancel out or make that red part of the circle disappear, and then any other layers underneath it with colors are going to be changed based on that blending mode that we selected. So that's why we still see parts of the green circle and none of the red. So in most cases, when you apply a darken blending mode, it's almost always going to give you something much darker, and then a lighten blend mode will almost always make it lighter. Now, when you start to work with different values, you're going to get some creative results. So let me show you what I mean. Let's change the red circle blend mode to a lighten group, and let's select screen this time. All right, now we can clearly see parts of the red, and the layers below it have changed colors. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the other two colors and apply screen to them as well, and we can see that there are some other color changes here. So the end result is a mixing of colors. So we have our additive colors, which are the red, green, and blue, which are the colors that make up your RGB monitor. And then we mix the colors, and the results give us cyan. So green and blue equals cyan. If we mix blue and red, that gives us magenta. If we mix red and green, that gives us yellow. Now these are subtractive colors that are typically used in print. And then right here in the middle, we have white. And that is because when you mix 100% of red, green, and blue, you end up with white. So in essence, the three different color layers are mixing the colors together based on that blending mode. All right, now let's look at what happens when we change the background from black to white. All three color layers disappear. And the first thing that may come to mind is the layers of the colored circles is, well, maybe those layers are now below the layer. Because as you know, layers stacked on top of each other can hide or show specific layers, and we learned this in the layer section. But we know that's not the case because we didn't really move the layers, and we can see that when we select all three color layers and then change them to a darken category and select multiply, those three colors come back. So again, this is just showing you that the different blend modes blend the layers together to give you different results. Now this particular file, this blending modes 101.psd file, is located in the resources folder, as well as this file, and you can download these and play around with the different blending modes to get a better feel for how the different blending modes affect colors in your creative artwork when you're blending different layers together. We also have a gradient layer right here, and we also have a grayscale layer here, and we're going to use these two particular layers in upcoming lessons to better understand how the individual blending modes work with our images, and I'll give you some additional tips and techniques and recommendations for using some of these individual blending modes. So in the next lesson and upcoming lessons, we're going to go into more detail about these individual categories, and we're going to use the grayscale and the gradient layers to help explain that. So if you're ready to learn about the blending modes and the individual categories, let's go ahead and get started on that in the next lesson.